Hello, welcome to what I'm calling Coffee and Craft Podcast, because if I say podcast, people know what to expect. It's going to be a bit of a mishmash this week. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, including having a website alongside YouTube and Etsy, linked to that, getting started and spinning all of the plates, prioritising time. Is it scary starting a YouTube channel? How to deal with negative comments? Some oddball guidance for anybody just getting started, and other crafts that I enjoy, and would I monetize them? I told you, it's going to be a mishmash. You see, what I tend to do with these things is that a week before sitting down to film, like now, hello, I put out a question on the community tab and I say, any questions for the next Coffee and Craft episode? Let me know, and I will pick the best one or ones and answer them. The trouble with doing that, though, this time, is that you lot asked some really good questions and I can't choose. So I'm going to answer them all. So strap yourselves in, or alternatively, just sit down with a cuppa or carry on with your work, and I will just witter on at you in the background like a chatty friend that won't shut up. And we'll keep each other company. How's that? Look, I have my coffee and everything. So initially, if you've been watching these for a little while, you'll know that I called these the Coffee and Craft Chats, and I was trying to make them a more vloggy affair. The reason why I stopped doing that was because vlogging is actually hard. If you have any channels, any vlogging channels that you watch, give them some love the next time you watch one of their videos, because so much more work goes into them than I ever realised. Until I did Vlogmas last year, and wow, it was fun. It was very creative, and I have to say, from an editing point of view, I preferred it, but it's a lot of work. I do realise that watching somebody sat down talking for a long period of time is not everyone's cup of tea, but I have coffee, so I don't care. Right, okay, the other thing I want to apologise for is the lighting. I know it's terrible, but what can I say? It's the middle of January, I live in Wales, and this is an old house, so we're embracing cave-like vibes. Cavecore, if you will. Okay. God, it feels like such a long time since I spoke to you last, and I think that's because it is. It's been about 2 months. The last one I did was at the end of November, and I was actually making the advent calendar that I had in my vlog videos, which you can't watch now because I've taken them down. It bugged me that they were so different to the other stuff that I want to put up on the Beech Tree Handmade channel, which is like stitchy tutorials. There's always a word that I can't say, and I'm overthinking it, and it's making it harder. DIYs. I've got a couple of stitchy DIYs, and I want to do sort of more chatty, crafty videos on there as well that aren't around the topic of business and running your own business, just crafty, stitchy embroidery goodness. And then to have all of the vlog videos on there as well, it didn't really make sense because they were all sort of personal life stuff. They could have stayed up. I might even put them back up for next year. I don't know. Or I might just do Vlogmas again, but this time from a stitchy point of view. But that's looking way off into the future. I don't know. It was a lot of work. We shall see. Instead, today, we are going to dive into some questions. So I put the feelers out on my community tab last week. And I said that I would pick out the best questions to answer here. And then everybody asked really good questions. So I'm going to answer every single one. All right, first one from CCL Craftsman. One thing I've been wondering, and you may have covered this in a previous video, but what are the benefits to having your own website alongside Etsy and YouTube? That may be quite a loaded question, but I'm curious about that. It's difficult to say because I can't say what the benefits are with any real certainty until I've actually started doing it for some time, and then I can report back with hindsight and experience under my belt. What I'm hoping are the benefits is that now that I am at a point with my shop and that I'm getting fairly consistent sales when I can send internationally as well, at least, hopefully I will make more money from the sales that I make from my Shopify site than I would if I was to sell the same things on Etsy. Again, I'm not sacking off Etsy because it does have a place, and I stand by the fact that it is still a good tool. But it's not just the fees. This is the thing. I don't know about the fees. Sometimes it's as expensive as Etsy. Sometimes you make more on a standalone website. It really does depend on what you sell and how much of them that you sell. But there are other things that really pulled me to do it, and that is mainly the freedom from Etsy's constant hoop jumping. It feels like they're throwing in a new hoop to jump through every single month. I was going to say week, but last year they did go a little bit heavy with the changes and the hoops, and it just had the unfortunate result that my last thread of patience broke. Up until then, I've always felt very emotionally connected to Etsy, and I didn't want to leave or go elsewhere. I loved it. As simple as that. I felt good being on the platform. I felt good about the platform. I didn't always agree with what the platform did or anything, but it overall felt like a good place to be, and I felt good being there. And that died last year. I will still use it, but I just don't feel good jumping through the constant hoops and like the whole star seller badge thing. That is such BS. It drives me absolutely up the wall. The fact that they are still selling it to sellers as like a gauge of what buyers value the most, and yet two of the criteria are sales and revenue. And buyers don't care about that. They care about the thing that they are buying. They don't care how much money that buyer has made in the last 3 months or how many sales they've made. Etsy does. So hoop. I just had to stop the video and just catch my breath because it started to turn into a bit of a rant. And this is the thing. It's distracting as a business owner and as a seller to sell on something when you are constantly distracted by your own anger of it. Even listing something, it's become such an ordeal. I can't. I don't have the time or the energy to run a business like that. And Etsy's just taking up too much mental time for not enough return. And I'm not just talking about money-wise, I'm talking about my time and my effort. The scales are wonky with that. And I think when I think of having a website alongside Etsy and YouTube, I feel lighter and I feel excited to get going again. And I think that difference there in the energy, that sounds a bit woo, doesn't it? But when you have only a finite amount of time and energy to spend on your business, you want the wind in your sails and you want to feel pulled towards something, not pushed with a cattle prod. So that is Etsy, and I feel pulled towards having my own website. And I don't know if you watched my stats videos that I was making last year, but in most of those, YouTube was my biggest driver of traffic every single time. And also I noticed that with Etsy itself, I was driving most of the traffic, and even the traffic that they claimed that they were sending, the organic stuff, it wasn't really. So if you are generating that much traffic and that many sales yourself, you may as well do it to a website. That was my second thing. Or was it third? I can't remember. Oh yeah, there were fees, not having to jump through Etsy's hoops. The fact that I drive the majority of my traffic and generate my own sales anyway, I may as well do it to my own thing that I have more control over. And 4, and this is important because you also mentioned YouTube, 4, Shopify, which is what I've gone for, integrates directly with YouTube now. This is something that they released last year. Now, I haven't played with it yet because I haven't got my Shopify site ready, but that's what I intend to do. So a lot of the people who found me and eventually bought from me through YouTube, they won't have to go anywhere because it will be literally below a video. There will just be a line of my products and people can can self-select and decide if they want to click on them or not. It's nice and unobtrusive, I think. I've seen videos that have the items and that it's not kind of like buy. It's not so subtle that you miss it, but it's also not in your face. And I love that. So yes, that is a very waffly answer. I can't give you any definite benefits because, as I say, I'm just starting out. But those are what I hope will be the benefits. I'm hoping to give myself a little bit more freedom, free myself from the Etsy hook and the need to be constantly playing their game, and just give myself a little bit more control over what is essentially my business, because I am acutely aware more than ever that if you sell on Etsy, you do it well if you play the Etsy game, and they set the rules and they change them all the time. It's like snakes and ladders, but the snakes keep moving. So yeah, maybe I'll do a follow-up video in a year's time and I will tell you if the benefits are as good as I hope. But that I hope has at least explained why I have gone down that route. Okay, the next question is from Desperately Seeking Dopamine, which frankly, if that isn't the best username online, I don't know what is. A year from now, you'll be glad you started. I love this. Thank you. I love it too. But do you have any tips for getting started and also, and especially, maintaining momentum once you've started? I'm attempting to spin so many plates these days and it's a struggle to keep them all going. Love your videos. Thank you very much. Do I have thoughts? Oh, so many. Oh, and Pump Jack Piddlewick. I've never said that name out loud. That you know when you read names on the screen, and I see this one regularly, but I've never said it out loud and it just sounds so funny. Pump Jack Piddlewick. You guys are awesome. She was referencing the comment that I've just read out from Desperately Seeking Dopamine. Reading and thinking on the comment below, thoughts on prioritizing. These days, most of us have many plates in the air, but I rarely see or read about prioritizing or even giving up on some things. Would be curious on your take. I'm schmoozing you two together because one, you both have awesome usernames that I love, and two, the answers to both of these questions overlap. So, plates. Oh, so many plates. I mean, getting started. I mean, do you mean like with your daily to-do lists, your weekly to-do lists, or just getting started with your business? Anything. Getting started, that first oomph is the hardest. I can only speak to my personal experience and what works for me, and I am very acutely aware that what works for me is just a nightmare for most people. Take from this what you will. I have things like this. This is my weekly, monthly and quarterly planner. I have managed to find a planner that has a 3-month goals part to it. So do you remember, some of you may remember that I had a quarterly planner up on the wall in my office. I haven't bought one this quarter because I have this bad boy. I need to see things. I've tried digital planners and apps on my phone. They don't work because the way my brain works, object permanence, is as soon as something disappears from my sight, it's gone. And so as far as to-do lists and goal setting goes, that's problematic. I cannot get going because I can't remember the thing that I'm supposed to be getting on with. So getting started with anything, to me, the first part is the planning. It helps that I enjoy planning because it helps me make sense of the mess that's in my head, and I can put it down in a way that it makes sense and looks less scary. I realise that planning or writing things down is not for everyone, and even just the physical writing things down is not for everyone. I know a lot of people think that I'm doing this the old-fashioned way because it's pen and paper. When you write things down, you actually use a different part of your brain than if you are typing things out on a computer. Did you know that? My brain seems to work better with pen and paper. You call it old-fashioned, you can call it what you want. I'm calling it what works for me, and everybody is different. As far as prioritising goes, and I think this is really, really important, especially with the plate spinning, you have to pare right back. You have to plan for the worst version of yourself. I don't like saying worst version of yourself because that makes it sound like you're a horrible person, and I hope that you're not. But I mean like the lowest energy version of yourself, the version of you that wakes up in the morning and then you get out of bed feet first, and basically the last thing to leave the mattress is your head, because it's that kind of a day. You're like, if I must. That version of you is not going to be able to do all of the things and spin all the plates. And it's very easy to build your business when you are high energy you know, you're like, I can do all of the things. I can do YouTube, and then I can do an Etsy shop, and I can do a course. I tried that. I had a course for a little while and it was one thing too many. And something had to give. I had to choose something. Now, the way I made that decision also links back to the prioritizing part of this question, because how do you choose? I enjoyed all of them. I didn't want to get rid of any of them. So how did I choose which one? Well, this is the other part of the advice that I'm going to give you. And I hate the sound of this, but it's good advice. And it's one that I follow all the time with my business. And that is follow the money. I'm assuming most of us get into business because we want to create something, but we also want to pay our bills doing something that we love and creating stuff. There's two sides to the same coin. I'm actually going to come back to this later on, but right now, I followed the money, and the things that gave me the most was my Etsy shop and YouTube. And the course was growing and could have got me more money, but it needed more time. So I dropped a plate. I am doing more in my business now because I've got fewer branches to it. So I've just got YouTube and I've got the shop, and that's it. But that's what I mean. You have to follow the money. Focus on the things that's bringing you in the most money right now. If you're just getting started with the whole business, that's a whole different answer. I guess you'd have to know what you're going to sell, and this is where I suggest Etsy, because it's a great place to start. But with the day-to-day tasks of running the business and growing the business, for me, it comes down to planning and focusing on the tasks that keep the needle moving forward. And again, which ones keep the needle moving forward? Follow the money. See what I mean? It sounds so bad, but it's the business person part of your brain that you need to let take the wheel, because the creative part of your brain is going to want to do the creative, fun things. And sometimes that needs to take a back seat, and the business part of your brain needs to take the wheel. Like I said, I'll get back to that. As far as getting started, choosing what plates to spin and keeping them spinning, I would focus on your lowest energy self, because you can always do more. If you wake up in the morning with more energy and you do what's on your to-do list and you've got more time and more energy, you can carry on. You don't have to stop there. Small progress all the time, every day, that will get you further faster than a lot of fast progress and then burning out and doing nothing. So remember, it's not even, I was going to say this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. If you're running a business, it's ongoing, and there's no finishing line. It's just all the time. So you have to take it slowly. You have to put the brakes on and be a bit strict with yourself and just go, right, okay, I want to put 4 things on my list, but I'm only going to put 2. And then if I still have time and energy afterwards, then I will carry on. But if I finish those 2 things and I'm done, I'm done. Some people might disagree with me on that, but like I said, I can only speak to what works for me and what keeps me focusing on the thing. Oh yeah, and in the spirit of focusing on things, focus on the things that pay your bills. Unless you're doing it as a hobby, in which case, do what you want. But if you're this is a business that you want to pay your bills with, as sleazy and as a lot of people, they balk at this, but you need to follow the money, because money is not evil. I'm sorry if there's anyone in my comment section who thinks that, then I respectfully disagree. Money is a tool, that is it. If you are spending so much of your time on something and it's not giving you any return on that time, ask yourself, is it really necessary? I mean, I appreciate that the planning and thing, it's not for everyone, but like I said, it works for me, and must be doing something right, because the business is constantly going up. The speed changes. Sometimes it's going fast and sometimes it's going very slowly, but it is going in a fairly decent up trajectory. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm doing something right. Okay, Mrs. Quills. God, some of you have got the most awesome usernames. Was it scary to start a YouTube channel? Yes. Tips on dealing with negative comments as a woman. Okay, right. This one is interesting. And this was actually the topic that I used with my live stream today with the members of this channel. So some of you might have already heard some of the stuff that I'm about to say. First of all, was it scary to start a YouTube channel? Yes, for so many reasons. Sitting down and talking to myself in front of the camera just felt alien. I didn't like the way I sounded. I didn't like the way I looked. I was mortified that I moved my hands about constantly. I was scared of comments. That was a huge thing for me. And I said this in the live stream today. I was convinced that people were going to tear me apart. But it surprised me how it actually feels to get these comments compared to how I thought it would feel. I thought it would break me. I thought it'd just be like an emotional mess, and I would never want to touch YouTube again. And it's not been the case. Now, when you say as a woman, I'm assuming that you mean sleazy comments about looks, weight, and other inappropriate comments that women do tend to have to deal with. Not just women, granted, but we're generalizing here. Yeah, I've had a few, not gonna lie. The internet brings out the best in people and the worst. It's all about context and how you feel when you read these comments. And with a lot of these comments, I've noticed that they fall into two categories. One, overly sleazy, people being gross, they can do one. And then you've got people and you think they meant that kindly, it came from a good place, and it's just clumsy. But I will accept their intention, but I will ignore the comment. I have watched videos by other creators that have had horrendous things said to them. How they get through the filters, I don't know. That's one thing I would say. YouTube is, in my mind, one of the best platforms to be on in terms of the tools that they provide to help you monitor and moderate the comments you get or not. When it comes to bots and inappropriate language, you can filter and you can add things that you don't want to see in your comment section. What I will say, the negative comments that I get tend to be of the seemingly less negative, but they're passive aggressive, or they are a bit snarky, or as I likened them in the live stream, salt wrapped with sugar, or like a Brussels sprout wrapped up in a sweet wrapper. Like, here's a sweet, and then you open it and it's a Brussels sprout. It's when people want to say something negative to you, but they want to hide behind the smile. You know what I mean? It's those people. Those people are the ones that do my head in, because they don't have the guts to say what they want to say, and they think that they can hide behind that. And the problem that I had when I first started was that I didn't want to be overly sensitive and get rid of or delete comments that made me feel the snark, you know, like people were aiming snark at me. My attitude was like, no, I'm not going to censor people. People should have a space to be able to say what they want to say. No, I'm not. My attitude has completely changed, and it happened one night last year when I had a flurry of these comments all at once from, I think they were all women, and they were snarky with a smile on their face. And I just thought, okay, this is interesting, because first of all, none of them were showing their face, and none of them had their names to their profiles. There was no form of, what did I call it before? Accountability. They could say whatever they wanted to and run. And it just occurred to me, I thought, why am I creating a space, spending a lot of time creating this space, my space, incidentally, and my time and my energy to give people who are hiding behind anonymity. I can't say it. They were hiding behind a cloak of anonymity. We'll just go with that. And just to be snarky. No. So now if I get a comment and it feels a bit off or a bit ick, I delete it. And that's at best. If you get your comment deleted, you're lucky, because I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and I'm giving you a chance to turn up again in the future nicer. Because if you don't, if you are a repeat offender, you eventually get blocked. So that, and I don't think that's the sort of comments that you would get as a woman per se, or maybe it is, I don't know, because sometimes the worst comments don't come from men. I'm not defending men before anybody goes, yeah, but I'm just saying, sometimes the worst things that can be said are from other women, and sometimes the meanest things can be said by other women. And there's another part to that, is that I've noticed that I only started getting these comments, or I noticed a subtle change in tone in the comments when I hit around 8,000 subscribers. And I don't know if the number itself had anything to do with it, or if there was an element of tall poppy syndrome in there, or what it was. But I just thought, if I'm going to keep on doing this long term, I need to be clear about my boundaries, and I need to defend those and not care about what other people think. If they think that I'm censoring them, tough, because there are plenty of comments that I leave up where people disagree with me all the time. I remember there was one, and I can't remember if I pinned it or not, but this person was disagreeing with me, and it was like a masterclass in how to disagree with someone on the internet well. And I just thought, yes, I don't agree with you, but yes. we disagreed about this thing, but it was like adults in a room talking and just going, yeah, I appreciate you. I don't agree with you on this, but it's cool. And I just came away from that feeling so like, oh, there are actual decent people in the world. People disagreeing with you are not necessarily negative comments. There's actually a lot of good in there. And if somebody can turn up and be respectful, the creator can actually learn a lot. So there's always a nugget of, and it's such a shame, because sometimes I think the people who are the snarkiest might even have something that I could learn from, or they might have a very good point, but they lose it the moment they get all meh. It is a huge shame. And some people just don't know how to act online. I've not, to this date at least, had anything serious. And if I did, I would report the stuffing out of it. At the moment, the worst that I have to deal with is the occasional snarky comment. And like I say, I might leave it and at best not respond. I might delete it if the person just needs to sort themselves out. I'll give them a chance to come back later another time, a bit more respectfully. And if they just continue, my life is too damn precious to waste with that. Some people can just ignore it and they don't even care, but then I live in the comments. I respond to people, I have conversations. This is where I'm building my community. So if I was someone who didn't respond to comments at all, to be honest with you, I don't think I'd care nearly as much. But this is a space that I'm building and I do care. So if people are not going to behave, they can be gone. But yes, filters, tools, use them, and don't let it hold you back, because honestly, it's minuscule part of my whole journey on YouTube. It's just, there are things that you can do, so don't worry. Okay, Charity Rochford, I'm sorry if I've just butchered your surname there, Charity. What other crafts do you like, and would you ever monetize these? I like, well, stitchy stuff. Embroidery is the only one that I have monetized. Crochet, I suck. I'm not good. These are so bad. I mean, they look good from afar, but I promise you, they're wonky as heck. I want to get into knitting. I want to try socks. everybody keeps telling me that socks are a nightmare, but I want to try them anyway. If I throw them across the room in anger, so be it. I will never monetize these things. I do think it is so important to have hobbies and creative endeavors that, one, that you allow yourself to suck at, and two, you adjust for you. You're making things and you're creating them, not even to share with people, not even to show them maybe. I mean, you can if you want, but just for you. I mean, I show this, I show some of the things that I've made, but I promise you, some of the things that I make or I draw, they are for my eyes only. Actually, my daughters and my husband, if he happens to walk past, but I don't share them on social media or elsewhere because it's just for me. And I think that's important to give you something to switch your brain off from everything else. Otherwise, it's a whole overwhelm thing. And so another reason why I like gardening, although it's not a craft per se, it feels good. It's a hobby, and it's also good for me that it's a physical hobby because it really does help switch off my brain and it just gets me into my body a bit more, which again, I realize sounds a bit woo, but it is that is so important. You sometimes need something that's going to make you physically tired, not mentally tired. Also, the fresh air is just... You do have to be careful with what you monetize because you can kill the love for it if you're not careful. I used to sew clothing for myself and I monetized that and started making clothing to sell. And since changing the business away from that, I haven't made myself a damn thing. And I couldn't even look at my sewing machine for at least a year. I think it was a year and a half before I used it again. And I make project bags now, but I just clothing, I absolutely destroyed my love for that. Embroidery, I honestly never used to find the time to do it without work. So it's kind of good in that respect that work gives me the excuse to embroider. And because I wouldn't ever do it otherwise, I don't think I feel that same pressure. It's not destroying the love for me. Plus, honestly, I don't think I get enough time to embroider, so I think I don't get the chance to get bored of it. But yes, I really do think that while it's important to like something enough that it gives you that natural oomph to get it done, don't pick something that you love so much that you would care if it became work, because it will become work and there will be aspects to it that you will start to dislike, because that is just the nature of work. So that whole do something that you love and you'll never work a day in your life is absolute BS. You will work. You will work harder than you've ever worked in your damn life. Was that the last one? Oh no, Charity, you asked one more question. I've saved this to last because I love this as well. Do you have any oddball guidance for someone just starting out? Why, yes I do. I should have mentioned this earlier. When I was talking about the keeping the plate spinning and what kind of things to prioritize, as well as, you know, planning your day if you plan for your lowest energy self, make sure that you plan space in your day, in your week, in your month, etc., for nothing. And I don't mean sitting down and doing nothing. I mean just leave yourself time. Leave yourself space. If you think something will take you 1 hour, give yourself an hour and a half. Give yourself 2. Why? You're making spice. You're making spice for life. What was that? You're making space for life. Why? Because life happens, whether you've got time for it or not. And it comes over and it stomps all over your plans. And then you have to get the remnants of what's left of your plans and you have to put them in the bin because life has lifed all over them. And life will tear down your door and it will sit at your desk whether you like it or not. So if you create some extra space, when life comes a-calling, you can still get your work done next to it. I don't know what I was doing with that metaphor, but that's my point. Make some space for life because life happens. So yes, number 1, make space for life to happen. The second piece of advice, if you're running a business, whether you realize it or not, you have 2 parts. You have business you and you have creative you. Do not let business you do the creating, and do not let creative you do the businessing. Does that make sense? So when you're sitting down and you're working out what you've got to do in a day, business you, because business you is the one that's got to follow the money and pick the tasks that will keep the needle moving forward, or whatever metaphor you want to pick. Creative you is when you're actually obviously going to create your thing. Now, I've made the mistake all too often of letting business me get into the whole creation thing element, and this is a tricky one because it's almost like they have to tag each other in, but they shouldn't work side by side. So obviously, from a business point of view, I need to know that it's a financially viable product. So and also time-wise, that it's a viable product, so that it's something that I can genuinely, realistically make again and again, and that I can actually make a decent profit from it, like money after fees, materials, time, etc. So there is an element of business in there, but then that needs to go, and then creativity takes over. And that means letting go of what I think other people will like to a point, because otherwise what happens is that you squeeze all the creativity out of something, and what you're left with is something so generic that nobody wants it. That has been one of the best pieces of advice for me. It's one of the hardest for me, because I find that I do tend to let the business side of me take over the creative side sometimes. And I think we do that. We start to think with a business mindset, and it chokes out all the creativity from our businesses and what makes them different, and the personality, and what it is about our businesses and us and our work that people connect to. You need the creativity for that. And the moment the business person or side of you starts to control or drive that car, but likewise, the moment your creativity starts to drive your business car, you're going to crash into a hedge, because creativity is great when you're creating things, but when you're making business decisions, it's not great. And lastly, and I cannot emphasize this enough, have a sense of humor. Obviously, that won't always be possible, because life will happen. Life can be a sometimes. Have a sense of humor, because life is gonna life, and plans are, don't forget, planning is all well and good to help you see where you need to go, but flexibility, you're gonna have to be flexible and sometimes ditch the plans that you had and change the plans. A lot of people seem to think that if you make a plan, you have to follow the plan to a T. I don't think that. Plans evolve all the time. It's a map. Plans are for people like me who have too much going on up here. We can't see the wood for the trees, and it provides us with a map so that we can see what direction we need to go in. And if plans have to change because life has happened, we're essentially changing the map. But we can't stick to the old one too rigidly, because that will lead us in the wrong direction. So if plans have to change, let them change. I'm getting shaky. Okay. I have been talking for an hour and a half. And then earlier I did a half an hour live stream. So I've been talking for 2 whole hours. I'm all talked out. But before I go, as a bonus, a bit of advice, I guess. It sounds a bit twee, but remember why you started in the first place. Because sometimes you might find that you get so overwhelmed with things that you forget. And I sometimes have to remind myself. And I started this business because I wanted the freedom and the time to be with my daughter as and when needed. And I think my husband and I sometimes take that for granted, because it's just become our normal. And it's not until we see maybe some fellow parents sort of sharing their struggles with, I don't know, childcare or something, that it really hits home how lucky we are, and how much of a difference this business that I've created has had on our lives, because it's given us this thing that was important to us. Now, freedom to be with your kids may not be the thing that's driving you. It might be that you hate your job and you want to pay your bills with your money. Well, that's the other thing. I've got two. That's the other thing I want to do. I want to pay my bills with my own job. You want the freedom, and you want to do the thing that you love, and you want to be your own boss and have that freedom and that control. Remember that. If it helps, write it down. Embroider it onto something, carve it onto something, paint it onto something. You choose. We are a creative bunch, if nothing else. And I hope I have kept you company today. I hope my waffling hasn't been too much. And if you really want to test my boundaries and see if I was telling the truth earlier about snarky comments, you can leave me one, but don't expect to see it there for too long. I will see you next week. Be nice. Bye-bye.